Welcome to Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan. If the name sounds like a business show to you, then you've got it all wrong. Kelly McMillan is the principal of McMillan Fiberglass Stocks and will talk about shooting for fun, competition, hunting, and self-defense. Now, here is your host, Kelly McMillan.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan, and thanks for being here with us today. And thanks for joining our ever-evolving program. This is really cool. As you can see, we've got a full screen of bodies in here. We're going to have all of us on camera all day long for the entire show. So it's going to be kind of a conversation. We're going to interview Rob Pettorsson of SAC, or Strategic Armory Corps. We've got Frank Galli of Sniper's Hide. Of course, Zev's on here, and we fixed his nostril cam, so you actually get a better look at Zev now. And I'm here, of course. Cooper's back from her jaunt around Europe, so we're glad to have her here with us, and she'll be on in a little bit to share a little bit of our social media stuff, and I'm going to ask her a few questions about her trip to Europe. How exciting that must have been to get to spend that time with her mother and just explore the world. That's just so exciting. So I'm going to introduce Rob Pettorsson. Rob, thanks for being here with us. Glad to have you.
Yep, thanks for having us.
So kind of give our listeners and viewers a little idea about who you are, how you got where you are today, and with SAC, and a little bit of your background.
Yeah, so start off with Strategic Armory Corps. What Strategic Armory Corps is it's the parent company of Armalite, Surgeon Rifles, McMillan Firearms, AWC Suppressors, and Nexus Ammunition. Was kind of put together under the understanding of, to be that one-stop shop for the consumer. With the 5 different brands, we have 5 different sales channels or ways that we sell product. With the ammunition and the suppressors and the 3 other premium firearms brands that we have, it's just a nice little caveat, and it has synergy together, so we can pair up ammunition, suppressors, and rifles all as one package.
Well, that's interesting. And thanks for sharing that with us. Before we go any farther, Zev thinks he's got this. Here we go.
There we go.
All right, now we get to see.
Hey guys, Rob Pettorsson here with Strategic Armory Corps. We're here to discuss kind of what Strategic Armory Corps is. We own Armalite Rifles, McMillan Firearms, Surgeon Rifles, AWC Suppressors, and Nexus Ammunition. We're going to take you in the back, show you a little bit of what we have going on as a company and our new state-of-the-art facility.
And for those who are listening on the radio, what we're looking at in this video is a really impressive pallet train, I think they call it, which actually includes 4 different CNC machines, which pull from pallets from a particular train, for lack of a better word, do the operations that they need to do on that particular pallet, put it back on the train. It goes down the train line to the next machine while it pulls it off and does whatever it does. And the cool thing about this is that it can run for 24 hours without having anybody have to touch any of the parts. So I think it's one of the best ways that you can get into mass production of high quality components without having the hours and hours of labor that, personally, when I ran McMillan Fiberglass Stocks, people didn't understand how many hours we had in every rifle. And if you can eliminate some of that, then obviously you can sell these rifles at a much more cost-effective price point.
Yes, and look at all those ARs getting ready to go. Good to see.
Zev has got to get into ARs and AKs any chance he gets. He just doesn't understand that nobody cares about that stuff.
I got carbine
Really
on the
looking forward to
mind.
being on Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan and talking about this in much greater detail.
And there you go. That was it.
Okay, I hope that wasn't too painful for the people listening on the radio. I think we did a really good job of showing what the video was about. Rob, let's talk about you, though. I want the listeners and the viewers to get to know you better. Start with where you grew up, how you got into firearms, and in particular, the military aspect.
Okay. I mean, that started off my childhood, and I guess as it relates to, being a shooting enthusiast with a pellet gun in the backyard, just shooting cans, stuff like that. Pretty much like most American youth, or the way American youth used to grow up. So it went kind of developed a passion for, like I said, the firearms side of things as a child, and then went through high school, was on the wrestling team. I think that kind of helped. And in my opinion, I think the wrestling team as a whole, I mean, I know a lot of former scout snipers, current scout snipers, current recon SEALs. Usually that's the sport the commonality that everybody did in high school. For some reason, it gives you that angst and that drive. So, while I was in between my junior and senior year in high school, I actually, you get the recruiters that come into your high school. I actually filled out a pamphlet to join the Coast Guard, oddly enough. And I thought that would be a good fit for me. One, because I grew up in New Jersey, and I did a lot of fishing. And I was like, man, what a cool quote unquote military career would it be to be on a Coast Guard boat and fish for 4 years. Well, the Marine Corps recruiter called me back because I literally filled out a pamphlet for every service. I just knew I wanted to go in this service. So the Marine Corps recruiter called me back, picked me up on a Saturday, and I was kind of thinking to myself, Saturday, what's this guy doing working on the weekend? Well, the recruiters at that time, they were so hungry to meet quotas. They were like, okay, I'm scooping this guy up. I got a hot one. So he brings me down to Red Bank, New Jersey, to the recruiter station. He brings out the little tiles, the recruiter tiles that they do. And anybody who went in the Marine Corps kind of knows what I'm talking about. And I said, hey, you can save it. Like, where do I sign? I just want to go in. He was like, well, what do you want to do? I was like, I don't really care. I just want to go in the military. Because my dad was former Army. He kind of, it looked a slight eye at me for going to the Marine Corps. My great uncle Casey, he was a Marine. That's how I even knew what the Marines were in my childhood. And there's actually a flag, it's a pretty famous picture. It's on Google. It's Mount Suribachi, the flag raising. And my great uncle Casey is actually in that photo. From the flagpole, as you're looking at it, 2 to 3 heads to the right. His name's Casey Casedo. But went to the Marine Corps, not really knowing what I was going to be doing, other than they said, you're going in 03 infantry. I was like, okay, well, I'll go in 03 infantry. Went to School of Infantry, graduated as a mortarman. And I was like, okay, well, this is interesting. Let's learn some stuff about, mortarman type work. Decided that wasn't really for me. Got assigned as a forward observer, did the forward observer thing for a while, what forward observers are for the public. They essentially are looking through binoculars and spotting the splash of these indirect fire rounds. And what an indirect fire round is, it goes up and it comes down. And sometimes the reach of these indirect fire weapons they have such a great reach that you're shooting over hilltops and over defilé and all this other stuff. So you need a forward observer out there actually spotting where these rounds impact. Well, I did that for a little bit and decided that wasn't for me. I took the NDOC for Scout Sniper Platoon with 2nd Battalion, 6th Marines. And at the time, my gunny, he's probably listening, Frank Ferrante, he didn't want me to go because I was going to be catered to be one of the leadership in the mortar platoon. And I was like, well, I can't really do this. Need to challenge myself. So I went to Sniper Platoon, pretty much finished out my career doing that. Of course, when I went in 2000, not a whole lot was going on. It was, you're going to see the world and, get college paid for and all that stuff. 9/11 happened. We were actually at Fort Bragg doing a mortar, MEU workup rather. So we're doing, everybody was doing their own little section activity and training to work up for this Marine Expeditionary Unit, which was coming up. My roommate Corey, he actually was with 1-6. I was with 2-6. Right after 9/11 happened, they had already been through their MEU workup. He got deployed. He come back 6 months later, 2nd Battalion, 6th Marines, and the 24th me were relieved 1-6, and then we're well on our way to a pretty frequent deployment schedule or op tempo at that point in time. So that pretty much was my military career. You're supposed to do at least 2 deployments in the Marine Corps. At least that's what the recruiter told me. I ended up doing 3, but it was a good time. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
So you were an 8541.
Yes, I was an 8541, and
Okay.
You'll hear 8541, 0317, and I'm sure Frank can attest to this. Like 8541s at the time, Scout Sniper was a secondary MOS. So it being a secondary MOS, if I was to get out and get recalled for whatever reason, they would recall me as an 0341 because that's what I went in and got into the infantry battalion as, was an 0341. The 8541 aspect, even though I hadn't touched anything mortar related with the exception of calling for fire for 3 years, I'd still get recalled as a mortarman and expect to know how to do that job, even though I hadn't done it for 3 years.
Yeah, let's hope that doesn't happen. Who wants to be a mortarman?
There's some good folks.
Basically what you said to begin with. So when did you get out?
I got out in 2004, August 22nd, 2004. Worked back in the Union for a little while back in New Jersey, cutting concrete. Was making some good money doing that in between my junior and senior in high school. Bought some ridiculous toys, Harleys, classic cars, all that stuff. Yeah.
Let's get Frank in on this. Frank, you've been on the show before. As a matter of fact, your show was one of the most listened to shows that we've ever had. Hence, getting you back on the show was really exciting for me. It showed me that a lot of people really liked what you had to say. But let's just assume that all the listeners today didn't hear the last show. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into the Marines, where you were at, kind of a same type of scenario that Rob just went through.
Well, pretty similar. I mean, I'm from Connecticut originally, Bridgeport. So, same thing growing up, went to the recruiter in high school. I went to a tech school. So I was really getting groomed to be an electrician. And the recruiter comes in, I signed up, delayed entry, like a lot of people did back then. I went in, initially I went to infantry training school. I did the recon in doc and then went to ARS. And then down in Key West at the final op, I kind of got into a little beef with a lieutenant down there. And my punishment was back to the grunts. He was 2nd Recon Battalion. I was supposed to go to 2nd Recon Battalion. I was not 1-2 yet. I was still kind of transit. I didn't have a parent unit. So then when I got to 1-2, they were redoing the Statue of Liberty for reopening the Statue of Liberty with Reagan. So 1-2 had just got back from Okinawa and there was nobody there. So they said, okay, you're going to Tiger Cruise up to New York City. And there happened to be 2 guys from Stay. And I said, as we floated up and being from Connecticut, New York, that whole thing, I said, hey, I'll take you guys out, but I want to go to Stay. And they're like, okay, cool. And we hung out in the whole cruise back up to New York on Austin. And, they were true to their word. I was a PFC. That was July of 1986. I was in the October class of 1986, which would be like 187 with the new calendar year. And I ended up being a PFC in sniper school. 1-2 sent one other Marine to be my partner, and he actually failed out. So, then I went to Stay Platoon, and we were the first special operations capable unit. It was a MAU, then a MEU. We were originally, it changed halfway. They couldn't we called it spread over continents because they couldn't make up their mind where they wanted us to go. But then the Gulf flared up. Persian Gulf was happening. The Iran-Iraq war was just kicking in. So then I became part of Earnest Will, which was reflagging the Kuwaiti tankers. Because the Iranians were attacking them all the time. And then one of our ships in our battle group hit a mine, and that was the Roberts. So then it became from Earnest Will to Operation Praying Mantis, and we ended up taking down a bunch of the oil platforms. It's kind of funny because it's the largest naval battle since World War II at the time, and this was in 1988 because there was such a big battle group, including the Enterprise. The Iranians shot like 6 Silkworm missiles at us, and all the dancing around, and we ended up sinking half the Iranian Navy and then landing on the Go Plats.
Both of them?
Yeah, exactly. It was because you know what? Our intel, they would always repaint the numbers. So they'd bring the boat into port, and they change the number on the boat and then send it back out because they really only had two. But so that was my career. And then, I went to Okinawa, Team Spirit, the whole thing, like a lot of us did. And then, got out. I was an electrician for a lot of years, and then became a private investigator back in Connecticut and New York, but started Sniper's Hide. I'm being the owner of Sniper's Hide. For those that don't know, I started that in 2000. And then when, 9/11 happened, Sniper's Hide became really popular. It became that, repository for information. And a lot of people were coming there and gleaning a lot of different things. One thing led to another. I was working down rifles only training. And, the rest is kind of the typical story now with me, having that background and teaching classes to this day.
Frank, I had a question real quick about nomenclature. Maybe you can answer the first one, which is for our viewers, what does STAY stand for and what do you guys do? And then I wanted to ask Rob if you can delineate the difference between a hog and a pig.
We called STAY. STAY stood for Steal, Take, and Acquire. But it's surveillance.
Suntan Association?
Yes, exactly. It's surveillance and target acquisition. So there's a surveillance component because we had ground radar at the time, and it was mainly for the deserts where they can set up the radar and the guys with headphones can listen if somebody comes in. And then target acquisition was us. And part of that either became sniping or forward observer, as Rob was saying. I went to forward observer school through ARS in Little Creek, but then I also went to Camp Hanson's in Okinawa was forward observer school too. So there was a big call for fire component to being a scout sniper when we were but then we ended up trading in our M40s for ARs and, MP5s for the oil platforms. We only used one guy in a helicopter with a M40. Everybody else was kind of fed into force. We didn't have recon battalion assets. We only had a platoon of force. So the next thing you know, you're a door kicker.
Right. So Rob, when you sit back, I think our viewers could see that bullet that you have there, and that's that signifies that you were a hog, right?
Yeah.
And what does that actually mean? And
so when you get into, there's always like battles to get, your choice in the pecking order, I guess. One of those being, when I took the indoc for sniper platoon, there's so many people that take the indoc. There's only so many that get chosen. And I'm sure Frank went through the exact same process. So you get, kind of weeded out to get into the platoon. You get into platoon, then you get trained, usually by school trained fellas. They'll train you up, and then they'll select who gets that quota for Scout Sniper School. So then once you go through Scout Sniper School, then you graduate, you get your hog's tooth. But to answer your question, when you're a pig, you're a professionally instructed gunman is, the acronym. When you graduate sniper school and you get your hog's tooth, you're considered a hunter of gunman.
Thank you.
And I actually predated the hog's tooth. I have mine right there behind me on the lamp as well. But we got a ceramic skull that somebody's wife made. That was a lamp that had the bullet in the forehead. And it was funny because this predated, I think hog came from the West Coast, if I'm not mistaken. And so being an East Coast guy, we didn't have that. And so, yeah, it was a little bit different for my day because I'm slightly older than Rob, but it all kind of comes around.
That was a great question. And I was going to ask the same thing. And the reason that STAY really popped into my mind is because when you and I met, Rob, you were working for a company called STA.
Yes.
And we actually hired your company to do some training classes for McMillan firearms. So talk about that experience that you had.
Yeah. So after I got out of the Marine Corps and moved out to Arizona, I moved out here to go to that Motorcycle Mechanics Institute. I figured, okay, I need something to spend my GI Bill on. So I had a passion for motorcycles, went through the school, a year and a half, graduated. I graduated my PhD. It stands for Professional Harley Davidson, but it sounds much better when I say PhD. And then after, working at a gun club for a little while, I kind of linked up with a fellow that owned a sniper school out here. At the time, it was called McMillan Sniper School. We used to do a lot of the training for you. This is kind of when we first had our interactions, doing the shop tours and stuff the first day of the classes. And it was just kind of a neat thing to offer a lot of the students and it had a little bit of a special place in my heart because when we first came through, we were doing the tours and I was like, man, this is McMillan, in sniper school, sniper platoon, you're like, okay, your rifle's a McMillan stock. And it was drilled into my head with respect to what the nomenclature was. But as we're kind of going through the shop, it was kind of neat. You'd see a lot of the M40A1 takeoffs and see a lot of the M40A3 stocks being made, at least at my era. So that was kind of awesome because I sent all the takeoff A1s back. There was pallets and trifles sitting full of them.
That's
of course,
cool.
I dug through a couple of them trying to see if I could find my particular gun, but
That's funny. Kelly just had to egress for a moment to take care of something on the other side. I wanted to also share how you and I met. And I was in a tour company. I owned a tour company here in Scottsdale called Desert Wolf Tours. And I walked into a store called Desert Rat to buy a high center jack. And there was Rob, and he had that bullet around his neck. And I introduced myself, and he introduced himself. And I asked him, is this what you do all the time? And he said, well, no, I also teach people in a sniper school. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, right, And, he had some nice tattoos and stuff, but, I didn't believe him just because he said that. Well, anyways, about a month and a half, maybe 2 months later, the fellow that owns the range where Rob was teaching invited me to take an open slot in a course. And it was a 5-day, they called it a sniper course, but for me, it was really precision rifle. And that's where Rob showed up. And I'm like, holy shit, he's my instructor. I'm in trouble now.
you thought I was going to forget your name too.
Yeah.
So is he the one that told you were an hour of angle shooter?
No, that was his buddy.
No, it was minute of barn door.
Okay, so much laughter.
Better buildings, Zev.
Right.
So let's get back to Strategic Armory Corps. And, for those of you who aren't familiar with that company, I sold the rifle company to Strategic Armory Corps in 2013. And that was towards the end of the year. They had a really good plan, and they were going to implement this one-stop shopping. And at the same time, they purchased Surgeon. And I think actually about a year before, Mark Johnson had purchased Surgeon. And one of the first things that he did was got about a 750 rifle order from...
I don't know.
Yes, you do. You worked for him.
Oh,
Tracking point. Tracking point.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got that order before I arrived there.
Yeah. But that kind of turned Surgeon into a rifle company as opposed to an action manufacturing company, which is what they were before. Even though they always built rifles, they might have built, a 20 or 30 a year or so, but they really were better known as a custom action company. And then I think Mark had some personal feelings about, creating this Surgeon rifle company out of nothing. And so I really think that he looked at Surgeon to be far more of a rifle company than I think most people in the industry thought of it, because hardly anybody knew anything about Surgeon as a rifle company simply because they did 700 guns for one company.
Right.
And so it seemed as when Mark first started running the company, there really wasn't room in the organization for both McMillan and Surgeon, even though they kept both rifle companies. And I'm talking about this just strictly from my point of view. And this was before you worked for him, Rob. So I shouldn't be offending you at all by this.
No.
But I don't think that they did a very good job of using the McMillan brand and building on that. And so for the first 3 years, Strategic Armory Corps really didn't, especially as it relates to McMillan firearms, I don't think they did a very good job of building that brand and working with it. Things happened. New owner comes in about a year ago around SHOT Show time.
Yes.
And from everything I've seen, they've made big strides to not only make Strategic Armory Corps everything that we had envisioned it might be when they first started making deals, because they've got a great new facility, as the video showed. They've got tremendous technology and equipment to produce big numbers, and to be able to do that, which, you know, when you put Armalite in the mix, that was a big number. Not so much with Surgeon and McMillan. Even the two combined, you couldn't consider them a large manufacturing entity. But I think that the new owners are doing some great things, and I think that they finally are starting to understand where the Surgeon model belongs and where the McMillan brand should be used. And I think they're making great strides to build what we had all hoped from the very beginning.
Yeah, there's certainly going to be a distinction between the two brands. With of course we have the McMillan TAC 50. It's, you know, king of the battlefield as far as distance is concerned. We've got the, you know, Surgeon is taking a lot more market share as it pertains to the LE market. Pretty much the entire state of Arizona are all running the Surgeon CSR package as the new standard. And we do quite a bit internationally with the McMillan brand. So that's a good thing for us as well.
Okay, it looks like we've got a couple.
Your mic, Kelly?
It looks like we've got a couple of questions from Facebook to answer. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a commercial break. For all of you listening on the radio, stick with us for the next minute and a half or 2 minutes, and we'll be right back. For those on Facebook, as you know, we'll still be here. We'll do a little banter back and forth, but we'll be right back for you radio guests.
Nice.
Not end, wanted badly end, and the U.S. was reluctant to endorse China's
I think we're hearing Voice America.
whole set of trade restrictions. Now you don't have China had imposed on.
I'm going to mute them for a moment.
I was just going to say,
There we go.
hey, Rod, turn off VA.
Well, I wanted to take this time for our Facebook viewers just to do a little housekeeping. First of all, I wanted to mention again that we are the title sponsor for the next really big ELR match, which is going to be at Valdina Farms in Texas. It's called the World's Longest Shot Challenge 2018, and you can find that on its Facebook page of the same name, World's Longest Shot Challenge 2018. Once you look on that, there's a link to their website, and you'll be able to see the accommodations. You'll be able to see some of the ranges that they've already set up. I mean, this is one classy joint. I've always heard about going to a Texas ranch and enjoying some shooting, and I've never had the opportunity. I won't be shooting, but I'll be there and enjoy it a lot. They actually have an old building. I think it was started in the 30s. They have an old building with a speakeasy down in the basement. And so they're promising that after a long day of shooting, there will be shots to be had, the kind you drink. We also wanted to talk. Oh, by the way, Travis Walla is the fellow that is putting this together, and he's done a really bang-up job. Now, we're going to be there. ELR HQ is going to be there with all of our great stuff. We've got, everything from shooting mats to scopes to bags, whether they're Edgewood or Weebad. We've got probably going to have some actions with us. We're going to have the Charlie Tarek from Tacom. That's that new periscope device that everybody talks about as being the next big winner, the big game changer. Actually, talking about the TAC 50, just to give our viewers a little tease, we have Rob Furlong coming up on the show on a pre-record because Kelly's going to be away, but I'll be kind of running that a little bit for him. But Rob did a fantastic interview with Kelly, and to hear about the TAC 50 and a lot of the technology, it's going to be wonderful for our viewers. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is that ELR HQ is has the credentials or is qualified to set up your target vision for you or your Kestrel. So if you buy a Kestrel Elite right here, like this 5700, which has the link and the applied ballistic solution to it, we would actually be able to fix the coordinates for you and actually set it up for you. So we're going to go back to the radio show now, and thank you for listening.
You are listening to Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan. Now back to the show.
Thanks to everyone for sticking around and joining us for the second half of the show. That was a great job, Zev, and perfect timing. I was afraid you were going to run long, but you did a good job. So what we didn't mention was that you're going to be there with Target Vision, and you're going to have Target Vision cameras there. I know a lot of people are talking about this, and especially for extreme long-range shooting, there's really nothing out there on the market that allows you to do what it does, and
Absolutely.
really feel strongly about having it on elrhq.com. So here's an opportunity for the guys that are going to be at the match. They can check it out because they're going to be using them.
They're going to be using it at the match. And actually, Valdina Ranch has a lot of other activities that go on there. So it won't just be the 40 or so shooters that are signed up, but it's going to be folks from all over different ranges coming in to check out Target Vision. And it's going to be really cool. So.
Thanks for sharing that, Zev. That's awesome. So we've got a question from Ride Thomas about which scopes you guys are using. Just to kind of quantify this, Frank, I know you're involved in all kinds of shooting, PRS, you do training, and you're instrumental in ELR. So let's start with you. And if it takes a multi-answer to answer this question, let's give Ride as much information as we can.
Sure. My top three for scopes are Night Force, Schmidt & Bender, and Vortex. Those are the ones I tend to gravitate to. It used to be heavy on the Schmidt side, and now Night Force sort of kind of, I'm running a lot more of those. But then right next to it is my Schmidt & Benders. For the ELR stuff, either the 5-45 or the 3-27 with the high revs gives you that 32 to 36 mil adjustment. And same thing with the Night Force now, has that 32 on up. And then Vortex with the Gen 2 razors or the AMG, that gives me that 28 to 32, 34 mil of adjustment within those scopes as well. So I'm kind of going beyond the 15, 20, 26 mil adjustment scopes to the biggers that are 28s to 36s.
I'm really glad you mentioned Vortex, because we've done a lot of research and we know people involved with Vortex and get a lot of feedback from the F-class guys about how good the Vortex scopes are, which is why we sell them on elrhq.com. I mean, we're firm believers in Night Force. We think Vortex offers a really good scope. And for a lot of guys who are an entry-level kind of guy who needs to get something to get on their scope, we also carry Citron, and we're getting a lot of good feedback about that. Don't know if you've had any experience with it, but all the feedback that we've got from our champions and the people that have tested them, really good feedback.
Yeah, I limited with Citron. It's always a big discussion with Citron. There's a lot of fans of it, and I know they have some new products coming out. And we'll be playing with that when that stuff comes out. But it's amazing how many people are big fans, especially in the F-class world and bench rest with Citron. And that's going to start trickling into what we do. So I know there's going to be more coming in that direction.
Terrific. Rob, how about you?
Just to echo what Frank said, I mean, as far as the brands he mentioned, if it's going to be robust and actually, hold up to the, the abuse you're going to put it through. I mean, a lot of these guys shooting these kind of matches, let's be honest, they're not going to be toting them around and probably banging them a whole lot, but still it's a quality of an optic you should take into consideration, even if it's, recoil based, with a lot of these Magnum calibers and calibers that are reaching out to that distance. You need to make sure that your equipment is going to hold up to that recoil. But as a caveat, yet again, to what Frank said, one quality is to make sure that its internal adjustment has enough available adjustment within it to where you can, dial up to distance, as a more direct way of putting the crosshair on the target and not having to do any kind of holdover technique within reason. I mean, you may run out of adjustment and still need to add the reticle to dialed adjustments. But if you set your equipment up for success from the beginning, you're just going to be better for it in the long run.
Hey, Frank, have you had any experience with the Charlie Tarek? That's the one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one solution to running out of elevation, which at 2 miles, everything out there runs out of, even the guys with 120 minutes. That's 60 minutes short of what they really need.
Yeah, I went to Felix Canyon in November and we shot to 4,000. And I used the Charlie Tarek, we call it the taco unit. I use the taco. I love it. I think John's a great guy. Even the AR stuff he has that gives you that more adjustment. He has little tiny flip ups, but the taco unit I had on with a 3-27 Schmidt. I was point of aim, point of impact with my 100-yard zero out to 4,000 meters. Then when we came into 32 and 26, we just made the adjustments on the fly with it. And, I never ran out of adjustment with anything like that. So, I mean, the Felix Canyon one was a 338 shooting at 4,000 with factory rifle and factory ammo was the goal. And that Charlie unit just took us out there from, like I said, 100-yard zero. We used the 300 MOA version. And so that's what gave us that. And then we dialed it back and we were able to make the adjustment down to 32 and then 26.
When we were first exposed to that, Kelly said, jump on it and, carry that in our store. And we do. And for those who don't know much about it, it's basically like a periscope and it goes right in front of your scope, either on a rail or on a magnetic mount on the end of the scope. And, you can order it with a set amount of MOA that you want on it. So for instance, right before SHOT Show, we were out with at Pahrump for the longest challenge back then. And the next day I went with Paul Phillips out to a range where we actually shot 4125 because his Tarek was a 300 MOA one. And the solution called for 398 minutes. And he never would have gotten that unless he had that 300 there. And the point of it was it went up to about 1,000 feet before it came back down. That's how far. And he hit it on the 6th shot cold bore. So that was pretty cool.
And I have an interview with John that I did at King of 2 Mile when you guys were down there. With David Tubb and John was over there and we were talking to them while you guys were finishing up the shoot. I think it is a game changer in a way for ELR shooting. It's the least expensive thing in the entire package next to rings.
Right.
When you look at your scope, your rifle, your barrels and all that stuff, the Charlie unit is $1,500 and it's giving you this ability to shoot that 4,000 with your 100-yard zero. So how can you beat it?
Yep.
I'm afraid Frank does what everybody else does and just kind of makes the assumption that, the stocks really don't matter. We won't even throw them in there as part of the gun. Now, even a beast with a 3-way adjustable butt plate and built for this is under $1,500. And I will tell you, I'm honest about this. If you don't have the right platform, the right stock, you're just not going to be successful. And when you're putting 38-inch barrels on there that weigh 16 or 17 pounds just for the barrel, another 4 or 5 pounds in a receiver, and you're supporting it on a bipod, those things are important, Frank.
Yeah. I'm terrible at retail. I'm like so bad at what people are paying retail wise. So I apologize for that. Then the
That's okay.
Matter. Absolutely. You can't have any movement or flex in that system. The betting, the whole thing has to be money. And we've been the McMillan fans forever, stuff like that. So it's kind of.
Yeah. And I was just giving you a hard time.
I know.
One thing that I do want to point out, and we were talking about scopes, I love to tell these little anecdotes that people have never heard of probably. And people don't know that the reason that the Mark IV exists is because back in the late 80s, when my dad was building bolt action 50 cals, there wasn't a scope on the market that wouldn't come apart under recoil. And so he went to Loophole because at that time, no Night Force, they were really one of the few scope companies in town that had the kind of warranty that my dad believed in, which they've always had. They're really great about, if something happens to one of their products, them taking care of it and taking care of the customer. So he went to them and he worked with them to design the Mark IV specifically for the 50 cal so it would stay together. And so for almost 15 years, we didn't sell anything on a 50 cal except a Mark IV. So we've had a long history in scopes.
We had the Daisy, or they were Average Johnson, but we had the Daisy 50 cal in the Marine Corps, the first ones, and they had the ones from your dad, the Ultras. Mm-hmm. And that was that series for the 50 cal. So that was 86 that we got them, and you had to pull the bolt out. You put the 50 cal round on it, and the whole thing went in, weighed 35 pounds. And that had coming out of your house, the Leopold Ultras.
Yep, that was the M86 with the shell holder bolt, which is now known as I can't forget. I forget the name of the guy who Rock has made those actions for, and most people in the competition world know it by his name rather than as a shell holder. But just a great story, and as a lot of people know, my dad started his own scope business and produced Vision Master scopes. And his great claim to fame in that was he took the light intensifier tube from a lit and night vision unit and screwed it onto the back of his scope and turned a day vision scope into a night vision scope just by changing the eyepiece. So that was a really cool item. Rob, let's talk some more about Strategic Armory Corps, where they're at today, what their plans are, what we can expect from them going forward, because they've got great products. And I want to be able to talk and get people interested in what they're doing again.
So within, Armalite particularly, there's a little bit of a, I call it a frenzy over black guns right now. The AR-15 market's picked kind of back up, which we were all looking forward to it, what the new normal year looked like. Unfortunately, we're not going to see that this year. But within Armalite, we're kind of keeping our nose clean. We've got some good products. We're the original AR manufacturer, so we're going to be keeping our nose clean this year. We're coming out with some new products at the NRA show as a late year release. And we're really focused on what we need to do for 2019, looking that far ahead. Within the production capability, we've kind of got all of that dialed in. I'm just kind of honing all of our processes. And as another side note, Armalite used to be out of Geneseo, Illinois. It's now a Phoenix-based company. So we just made that move from Illinois to Phoenix. Surgeon's moving from Oklahoma to Phoenix. Nexus is already in Phoenix. AWC is already in Phoenix. And obviously McMillan's been in Phoenix.
So any new products out?
Your mic, Kelly.
Any new products out? Anything we can look forward to that's a little bit different than what we've seen in the past?
We're going to be looking at launching some alternative calibers within the Armalite brands. We've got some new things we're working on for AWC. A lot of new ideas getting kicked around for the McMillan line to kind of echo what I said earlier about creating that distinction. And we've got some new stuff on the drawing board with the Surgeon line. Obviously, Jack Oliver, Kelly, we're keeping him pretty busy.
Terrific. Frank.
Can I say one thing to Rob?
Sure.
Like a hidden gem with AWC, your guys' Thor TI, I have it for years now. One of my favorite cans ever. For a precision rifle, that Thor is just fantastic. And I don't think it gets talked about enough. The cans from AWC. There's a lot of really good precision rifle suppressors coming out of that shop. And they kind of just get lost in the mix. And like I said, in my top two suppressors sitting here at the house, my AWC Thor is one of them.
What a lot of people don't understand that about AWC too is it's within Strategic Armory Corps. It's overlooked and for no ill will with the suppressor market as a whole. Let's be honest. I mean, they've been dangling the Hearing Safe Act in front of our face for the past year and a half now. So, from a consumer standpoint, what are you doing? I'm going to wait for them to pass the bill. I'm going to wait for them to pass the bill. Oh, they talked about the bill.
If you're waiting, don't wait.
Yeah, it's not happening anytime soon. But to get back to AWC, it's been around for 34 years, almost just as long as McMillan. Not quite as long, but almost just as long. It was started by Lynn McWilliams. Sorry, I'm getting feedback. Lynn McWilliams, after he got out of the Marine Corps, got back from Vietnam, and he started up, AWC suppressors. And it started as a true custom shop. And what a lot of people don't know too is, Phil Dater used to be one of the old owners of Gemtech. He used to work with Lynn, doing a lot of development stuff, but it kind of cut its teeth as being that all around prototype suppressor company, and with, one-off custom type stuff. And we have, as far as our main offerings, we do, the Thor PSR, or just the standard PSR suppressors, which it's not a QD, it's not a fast attach, it's a universal fitment device, in to use a different terminology than a QD brake or a fast attach brake. It's actually got a thread on the outside of it, and the can actually threads around this universal threading. So, for example, if you had a 308 Ti can or a 308 stainless steel can that was a PSR designation, and Thors are designation for titanium, by the way, you could get one muzzle brake if it was a 308 caliber can for your 223, your 65, or your 308, and have that same can go on that same universal fitment device. If you had three muzzle brakes on one PSR muzzle brake on each rifle, you could use that can across the board.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned AWC, because I feel like Frank does, that not a lot of people know about that. But back in the early days, Lynn McWilliams hired my brother to machine a lot of parts for him. So even before he had his own manufacturing capability, he just, outsourced a lot of the parts, and my brother did a lot of the machining for him. I want to talk to you, Frank.
Okay.
One of the exciting things for me is a lot of people who knew you back in the early days of Sniper's Hide got to know Frank Galli, and you were synonymous with Sniper's Hide. And then you went away. I think you sold it, or I'm not sure exactly what.
It was a lease agreement. It was really a lease agreement. I was trying to bring Sniper's Hide or precision rifle shooting to a bigger group. So I had an opportunity to come into a sports network that originally started out as part of Fox Sports and then became Scout, and it was a sport conglomerate. Well, they screwed that all up and ended up CBS bought it. CBS Sports ended up buying Scout. And the day CBS bought Scout, I left and took all my stuff back. I never gave up control. It was really like they invited me to their strip mall and gave me free rent to put my product in their mall and give it access to that membership, because at the time, Scout had 25 million members. And the idea was to bring it to a larger audience. Well, the precision rifle people didn't like that. And it turned out to be, and I had a contract. So when they broke the contract and through the sales of Scout, which it happened last year in March, I took everything off and left it. It took me about 9 months to regain and redo everything. And then January of this year, I completely revamped the site, but it is 100% back in my control. It's all brand new software, even to the degree I saw the YouTube thing coming. And in December of 17, I bought my own video platform. So if YouTube disappears for the gun industry, I have my own video where I'll never lose my stuff and I can host it myself. But the site is back up and running. It's full throttle again, and I'm managing it and doing everything that I was doing before. But yeah, I did take a step back during the Scout years because I had a team from them to do all the heavy lifting, and I just had to do a bit of content.
Well, I'm really excited to hear that, because I have Sniper's Hide has a really special place in my heart and in the development of a lot of my products. So I want to talk about that some more. but we're getting close to the end of our radio time. And before we do that, I want to get Cooper on. I want her to talk to our listeners about what we've got going on with social media. So Cooper, share with us what you've got going on and where we're at today.
We are kind of in the same place, nothing new, but I would like to remind our radio listeners to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan. We will, starting mid-April, we will be doing Facebook Live as our main way to do the show. So make sure you like the page so that you guys can continue watching it and listening and enjoying the show. And also, we do want you guys to comment any questions or topics, anything you want to discuss, because we love having you guys interact. So and we're doing it now, so please continue commenting. Sorry.
And you wanted to say a shout out to one of our viewers on Facebook who...
Marshall, he said, hi, Kelly, love my A5. I have another in production in your shop right now. So thank you for commenting it.
Hey, Marshall. Thanks for watching.
We love that you love your stock, and we're happy to provide you with great stocks. I don't know.
Well, everyone who has been listening to the show for any length of time knows that here at McMillan, we can... Some of you don't know that Cooper's mother actually works for McMillan Fiberglass Stocks as well. She does our accounts payable. And Cooper and Laura spent an awesome, 10, 12 days in Europe?
10 days, including the travel days.
I saw your pictures on Facebook. It was wonderful. Just give us just a couple of minutes of some of the coolest stuff that you did.
Okay, in Paris, I finally got to see the Louvre, the Mona Lisa. It's just amazing. It is smaller than you would expect. So if you do go, just heads up, it's about like 3 feet by 4 feet, and it's behind glass, and you can't get close to it. But it was amazing, and I'm so glad I went. Probably one of my favorite things was climbing to the top of Notre Dame. One of my favorite pictures is of me all bundled up because it was so cold there. It was freezing. And then, of course, the architecture in Paris is just amazing. You can't beat it.
And I requested a gargoyle picture.
Yes.
You accommodated.
And I did send it to him. And then in the United Kingdom, probably my favorite thing was Stonehenge. It was just amazing to see the 5,000 years of history dating back, and it's just amazing how well it is preserved. And it was very cool that we were able to go inside the circle, which is something I've always wanted to do. It was probably the main reason I went there other than London.
Well, I've always been impressed with Europe because when we think about things that are old in this country, we think about a couple of 100 years old. If a building is old in Phoenix, it's about 70 years old. But in Europe, we're talking about thousands of years, and it's just amazing. So,
and Rome is another good one. If you're going, you got to go there.
Well, one thing that I can tell you that you were impressed with was the food, because it seemed like every other photograph you pictured, you posted on Facebook was of food. So
yes.
Did you gain any weight while you were
I did. I gained 2 pounds, even though I was walking like 15 miles a day, but it was worth it.
Yeah. And I just want to let everybody know that my wife and I actually traveled with Cooper's mom, Laura, and her husband, Bill, when we went to Europe or to Italy for 2 weeks. So they're great people to travel with and really had a good time. And I'm glad you got that time to spend with your mom. You know, as you get older, these kind of things just don't happen every day. So cherish it while you can.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Okay, we've got about 30 seconds. I want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in, and thanks for being loyal to Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan. It's been a really great run for us. As Cooper mentioned, we're going to step away from the radio portion of it. We've got a couple of more shows, and I want you to make sure that you tune in for them. But this is going to be a video podcast only in a couple of weeks. So make sure, all of you listeners, if you want to continue to stay in touch with Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan, that you check us out on Facebook, and we'll keep you posted on where we're going to post the videos so that you can see them at your leisure. So once again, today's Good Friday. It's a great Friday for me, and I want you all to have a happy Easter. And we'll be back with you next week on Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan and Voice America.
All clear, guys.
Okay, thanks, A-Rod. And what I'd like to do, if you're okay with this, Frank, is I'd like to continue our conversation a little bit. There's some things that I want to talk about with Sniper's Hide. And Rob, if you've got a few extra minutes, we'll continue this on Facebook.
Yeah, I'm all good.
Okay, good. Awesome. Now, one of the things that I mentioned earlier for you that are watching on a video, I specifically went to, and what I liked about, and I think somehow when you said, well, you wanted it to be part of a larger sports package, you know, we didn't think of Sniper's Hide as a sports venue. But I know when you got into competition and you started having your competition, you wanted to expand on that. But in the early days, it was strictly for serious police and military people that were serious operators. And the one cool thing about it was some of the know-it-all wannabes that would come on the forum, they didn't last long because the members did not put up with that stuff.
Not at all. I mean, we still, honestly, we've gotten, because of Facebook, a lot of the trollish behavior goes over there, and we have a really good crop of people now. But I was living on the range at Rifles Only for a lot of those years, from like 2003 to 2011. You know, I'd walk out the door and go shoot something if somebody said something. If you came out and said, well, I can do this, I'll walk out the door and go shoot it and go, no, you can't. You know, we're just trying to hear and doing that. And that was a big thing. But we still have a lot of those good members are still there. There's still some really positive discussions. Like I said, you had so many people jump to Facebook, and it becomes a little bit of back and forth with that. But we're on Sniper's Hide. Honestly, I think the quality this year, I mean, the scout years were different. And I kind of dismissed my scout years as an experiment and failure. But you know, now in the return, I still see some really good quality conversation, everything from the ballistic talks to ELR to rifles and scopes, because that reputation carried. We had a solid enough reputation from the days you guys are on that it carried us through those scout years.
Well, you know, in the early days, there weren't many. You said you started in 2000. That was only about 4 years into the internet craze.
Yes.
So you were early, and a lot of, what'd they call them before? Newsrooms?
Message boards.
Message boards. And so you were one of the first people who kind of went away from the message board and developed a platform that really worked as a forum.
In 2000, we were a message board. In May of 2001, I latched onto the first forum software and purchased it. So in its kind of current configuration, that started in May of 2000. But we were originally a message board that I built using Microsoft on a plain old platform HTML, where when you had a conversation, it just continued. You know, like the old Sniper Country board. I was very similar to that. When that was still up and running. And so, yeah, we switched it up pretty early.
Well, I don't consider myself a brilliant man. You know, I think I'm fairly intelligent, but brilliant never really comes into the conversation. And I'm being honest, but probably one of the most brilliant things I ever did was getting Sniper's Hide and their members involved in developing a stock. I had been challenged to have to create a sniper stock that was all things to all people, and as you know, that can't be done. But the talk on Sniper's Hide was, well, you know, if I had this on this stock, it would be perfect. Or if you could do that, I said, okay, you guys tell me exactly what would make the best sniper stock that you can, and I gave them about 3 months to come up with all of that feedback. And then once I got the feedback, I started to compile it into a stock that would actually be producible. And I couldn't get it all, but I put as much of what everybody was asking for into this particular stock as I possibly could. And then I made one, actually made 4 or 5 of them. And I sent them to some of your guys on the hide saying, hey, you guys were instrumental in this. I want you to test it. I want you to put it through its paces and tell me what you think, tell me what to change, tell me what to keep. And if you haven't figured out by now, that was the A5, which from that time till now has been by far the best-selling stock McMillan has ever made. We still make 15 A5s a day, and for just about every barreled action you can think of, because it's become known as the #1 sniper rifle stock there is. And not only that, every one of my competitors has copied it.
Yeah.
So if you can't find a McMillan A5 somewhere, you can find another manufacturer stock that looks an awful lot like it. And I couldn't have done that without the participation from the people in Sniper's Hide. I hope all those guys who participated take the kind of pride in that I do. I think they deserve it. And I really wish I could go back and talk to some of those guys who literally were testing those and say, thanks.
One is
really
in Phoenix. One moved from New York to Phoenix, Greg. The older gentleman was a Marine, Greg Langalius. He's in Arizona now. And if I walk 25 feet that way, I have the original one you sent me sitting right here, and I have it put up. And it's funny because right here in front of me at my feet, I have Surgeon Action number 11. I have the original prototype 25 feet this way of the McMillan A5, and it's still one of my biggest accomplishments. And we've done this with other people, not just you. I've done it through scopes. I've done it through other stuff. It's still one of the biggest accomplishments because you were the first one to do that with our community. And it turned out to be a home run right there off the bat. So I consider that like my top 2, probably my top 1. And then we built the first Sniper's Hide rifle through George Gardner, the headhunter, was built 100% around that stock. The stock came first, the rifle came after, and we created the headhunter, which, I have 2 of those sitting right here, number 1 and number 33. So.
And one of the things that I'm proud of is that there are people like Marshall who, came on Facebook and said, I love my A5. You're building another one for me right now. I know people that have 6, 7 of them, and they would never buy any other stock. Now, I think we make a lot of other really good stocks. We just came out with an A6, which is basically an A5 that is kind of angular. It's flat on the sides. We kind of updated the A5 a little bit and made it for PRS so that when you're shooting against barricades or off barricades, it works better than the rounded sides of the A5. And we're also doing one specifically for PRS that doesn't have the butt hook. So if you're using a rear bag, you can slide it back and forth and get that just right, where the butt hook made it a little bit difficult to shoot with a rear bag. But people love that thing. And like I said, we're still making 15 of them a day. It's a really big seller for us.
And it was a conversation. I was actually just being a typical Frank and a squeaky wheel and whining a bunch to you that for a little guy like I was, the A4 was too big and heavy. So that's when we wanted the modifications for the A5. And it's funny because Rob was talking about takeoff stocks. I actually have through when the takeoff stocks came, I have my A1 and I have that all put together, but I have the Jim Owens A4 with the big hook.
Uh-huh.
And they only had one of those takeoff stocks that came out, which was the Jim Owens version. And that's the one I built my A3 on. So with takeoff stock rifles, I have the A1 and then the A4 Jim Owens version with that crazy hook.
Man, you've got some collector's items there. I want to talk to Rob for just a second. I know you've got something going on at SAC that involves the A5. You want to talk about that program?
Not this time, just because it's a little bit hush hush, I would say. But yeah, I don't want to speak, mainly just to cut through it. I don't feel I'm the one to speak the most educatedly about it. And two, I don't want my mouth to get ahead of my brain. So I'm gonna defer that question.
Okay, well, so I'll explain all that gibberish that he just threw out there. It's a special program that they're going to be offering that everybody out there is going to want to at least know about and have the opportunity to make a decision as to whether or not they want to participate, because it's going to be really cool. So I think they're still right now in the process of trying to make sure that they can procure all of the parts for it so that it can be authentic and identical. And I'm not going to say any more about that because Rob won't say any more, but just keep tuned to Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan, because as soon as they let me, I'll let you all know about it. And I think it'll be real exciting for everybody. How's that?
We should have some news right at NRA for it. That's where we're looking to kind of launch the project. But we'll feed you some teasers on the next episode.
Okay, awesome. So how do you keep in touch with people? Give us your social media stuff so that anybody out there can go look you up and keep track of what's going on with SAC.
So within the conglomerate, let's say, we have Facebook pages for McMillan Firearms. AWC Suppressors has its own Facebook and Instagram, pretty much Instagram and Facebook across the board. But you're going to find one for McMillan Firearms, Armalite, AWC Suppressors, Nexus Ammunition, and Surgeon Rifles as well. So you can hit us up on messages there. Usually have our social media person gets back relatively quickly. With Armalite, we did put a little bit of a disclaimer on our website. We are moving facilities, so if you're going to ping us about a parts order, give us a little bit of time. We're still sorting through some inventory. We were in that building for 40 plus years, so we're going through quite a bit of stuff. As you can imagine, it's like moving somebody out of their home that they've lived in for 40 years and, finding some interesting stuff. I mean, for example, we had serial number 2 AR-10 hit the loading dock yesterday with the top charging handle. That was pretty cool. So there's some history coming down. Obviously some of the we're going to do the wall of of fame, let's say, with the Armalite shotgun, the Armalite survival rifle, the AR-18, the AR-180. We have all of these as museum pieces we're going to be putting up in the shop.
Terrific.
Nice, that AR-7. My dad had that in the 60s.
So what you're telling me is that each of the entities within SAC has their own social media and their own website.
Own social media, own website, and own Instagram, so you can pretty much get us across the board on all platforms.
Okay, and there is not a unitized SAC website.
We do have an SAC website, but essentially what it does is it lets you menu order each company.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. It's good information to know, because I know a lot of people out there are going to want to go check out and see what's going on and how to keep up with what new stuff is coming out. Frank, Sniper's Hide?
Yep, snipershide.com. And
Okay.
then the forum, it's just forum.snipershide.com, and that's where all the conversation goes on. And then I'm on social media, but not as much. I'm not talking on Facebook as much. And, we're feeding a little bit to YouTube, but we're expecting to get that shut down, any minute. And then I also started, I don't know if you guys saw, but the Everyday Sniper podcast on that Podbean. And that's been going really well for us. We've been doing every other day. We do some uploads with the Podbean app for the Everyday Sniper. And
Where's that at? How do we find that?
On Podbean.
Okay.
The app. So you guys are on Podbean as well. I've seen that. And so we're just doing that and I have a section on the Sniper Side forum, so you can find the episodes too. There's an Everyday Sniper section.
And one thing I know about you is that you have a vast wealth of knowledge about a bunch of different things. And as you were talking about earlier, you went out and invested in one of the first forum programs that there was, but you've learned a lot about stuff as it relates to everything that you've done in the past 15 years. You're a fantastic photographer. You're a good videographer. You have a good sense about how business works on the internet these days. And you're not a young man. I mean, not 25. You're not a millennial. So that seems like that's a little uncharacteristic. But did that come just because you're the kind of guy who likes to learn everything you can about whatever you're doing?
Yeah, curiosity is a big one. And, even I like investing in some of the equipment. It's kind of like comes out of the precision rifle stuff. I think the Marine Corps gave me an appreciation on the photography side. We used to run around with the Nikonis cameras and stuff. So that I appreciated, but I want to do something right. If I'm going to invest in it and do it, I might as well do it right the first time or try to do it well. But I do keep up as much as I can and look at what social media is doing, what the best practices are. And for all its fault, Scout was actually pretty good with some of that because they used to educate us as well as the publishers, what's working. Like we had learned so much about Facebook behind the scene that when you got through, down deep into it, it's like, well, this platform's ridiculous, but it's a necessary evil in a lot of ways. So, but yeah, I do try to learn as much as I can. I take classes on film and video and things like that. I take classes on some of the computerized stuff. And a lot of it's trial and error, man. Late nights up and realizing, oh shoot, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I think I better go to bed.
Do you have a family?
Yes. My daughter lives in LA now. She goes to school out there. So it's just me and my wife here, but she's put up with this for 17 years now. And no drama there. So
where's your daughter going to school?
She did go to Musicians Institute in LA, but she's at Pierce now over there. And she does a lot of horse stuff. She was a pro rider back in Connecticut, won grand champions and stuff, jumping, in the Fairfield County horse areas and stuff. So she teaches lessons on riding in between going to school, and trying to live in LA.
Sounds like she was a musician as well.
She wanted to do music business, but it turns out Nashville's a lot better than LA.
Right.
So she, her being in LA and she likes the school that she's at, and she's doing some marketing and some business classes in LA, and she likes it because originally she was going to transfer to Nashville. You call a music business in LA and they won't answer you. You call the same company in Nashville and they pick up the phone immediately. But now she's still finishing her school because she's having a good time with it.
Well, and she definitely won't have to give up her horses if she moves to Nashville.
Exactly.
Probably have better access to them anyway.
I don't know. She says, I guess the barn she's at now, like the Kardashians shows up and rides. So I'm like, it doesn't work until you get yourself on Instagram with them. So I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, that probably works for her. Not sure that would mean anything to me.
Yeah, exactly. It's the lifestyle out there.
Yeah. Zev, you had a question that you wanted to ask earlier, and we were a little coming up to the end of the radio show. So can you remember what that was?
I don't remember. All I can say is
Probably
to add on
with an AR.
Probably did. No, all I can say is just to add to what you said, we were out at King of 2 Mile. I was doing some droning and videoing, and I had some problems and some questions about audio. And I got to tell you, within like 1 minute, Frank said, I got you covered. Goes to his car, brings out this package, explains to me what he put together. It was the best kit I ever saw to do what I wanted to do. So yeah, he's not only good at it, but he's helpful in spreading it around and helping other people out. So thank you, Frank.
Yeah, there's no secret sauce. I mean, it only pays. I'd rather watch your videos with good audio than have to listen to the wind. Right. So it pays to share.
Right.
Well, I keep telling him nobody wants to listen to the wind, Zev. So quit putting that mic right under your nose because we can hear you breathing.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a great time. I've really enjoyed having both of you on the show. It's awesome. Thanks for Cooper for being here. Glad she's back. I know how much she enjoyed traveling, but she eventually you got to come home. Zev did a good job. We finally got the video up. That was really awesome. I'm loving this format. I love Zoom. This is really cool. I feel so much more at ease, and I think the conversations flow so much more easily when we can see each other and kind of have that face-to-face conversation you just can't have when you're calling in on a radio show. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to be here with us and to check in with us, Frank. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It's humbling. Good seeing Rob again. We see him at SHOT Show for the Scout Sniper stuff, and we barely get to talk.
Okay, so we're going to cut this off. It's been a great time, and we'll put it up on a platform. We've been putting it up on YouTube, but I heard today that they've given all of the gun owners 30 days to get all their gun-related videos off.
Everything?
Yeah.
Not just things that were experimental?
So I don't know what that means. Somebody passed that on through a Facebook post. So anyway, we'll let you all know where to find this video. You can always find it on Facebook. We'll catch you next week. Thanks for joining us.